So OpenAI hacks Hugging Face. What is this about? It's kind of interesting what happened, and then there's some interesting consequences here too. So the general news is, so OpenAI, that's they make ChatGPT, big AI models, and when they put out these new models, they always like to say, oh, it's better at this than the other ones because they run a bunch of these benchmarks. There's lots of AI benchmarks that. So if you make a new model, you can run it through the benchmark and you can say, oh, good, we scored 72.1%. And last time it was only 69.8. So big improvement. So OpenAI was running this a benchmark suite called Exploit Gym, like GYM, like a gymnasium, Exploit Gym, which is about essentially exploits, vulnerabilities, hacking, essentially. So as part of this, the model that OpenAI was testing was in sort of a sandbox where it doesn't have access to the internet. It doesn't have, not supposed to have access to the outside world, but it had a little, like one path where it can deliver information to the test system, the system that's testing it. So it's sort of in a special harness that is, gives it access to the tools that it might need to test these exploits, but in a closed shell. And its only connection outside of that was this, it had a way where it can like exchange a file or transfer a message or something to the test system. I don't know the detail on that. But anyway, so it's running this exploit gym test and it wants to do well on it, of course, because these things are pretty goal oriented. And, so it thought, hey, in order to make sure I do well, because I don't feel like I'm going to do well, it found, instead of working on the exploit gem exploits, it found a bug in its own test harness that it found it was, essentially a 0-day bug in their own test harness that is controlling the thing. Now, backing up a step, this model is running without the normal safeguards that you and I would get if we go get ChatGPT and we say, hey, hack the Pentagon. It's going to say, oh, no, don't hack the Pentagon. But in this case, it doesn't have a lot of those things in there. So anyway, it essentially hacked its own test harness, found an exploit, took advantage of it, and was able to get access to the internet, which it wasn't supposed to have. And the reason it did this, it wasn't trying to be malicious or get out of the lab to stay alive or anything like that. It was trying to accomplish its goal of doing well on this test. And so it thought, hey, if I go to Hugging Face, I bet that this exploit gym testing suite and all the answers are probably there. So it went over to Hugging Face to try to get the things, but it didn't have credentials, and maybe those things weren't public. I don't know. But anyway, it ended up hacking Hugging Face in kind of a big way. And so the folks at Hugging Face are, they see, hey, it looks like we're under attack in some way. What's going on? And then, of course, since then, OpenAI has said, oh, goodness golly, we take safety very seriously. And Hugging Face has said, yeah, we do too. And, boy, that was weird, huh? But my take of what the most interesting part of this that I heard was that Hugging Face had to go to Chinese models to defend against this attack. So, because it's happening very quickly, because it's completely run by an agent, an agentic thing. So it's going, and it's probably doing more than one at a time, I'm sure. And they tried to defend using, their GPT or their Claude, whatever they've got, Fable or whatever. But those models both said, oh, no, this looks like cyber hacking stuff. We don't want to assist you on this. And Hugging Face was just trying to get help to figure out what was going on in sort of a timely manner. And so they ended up using GLM 5.1 or 5.2 to help them understand what was going on so that they could shut it down and do what was needed to put it under control, which is now, since then, I guess OpenAI has granted them an exception so that they will be on the list of approved people who can use the fancy models to do fancy cyber testing things. But it really is interesting. So it's all about, on one hand, you've got the test that's supposed to be testing how well it can hack. Well, I guess it did pretty well. On the other hand, they weren't controlling their own testing product very well, which is not a very positive thing. Goes to show, like, okay, so if your organization gets hacked, it's going to be getting hacked by a model that's going to have no guardrails. It's going to be able to do whatever it wants. And you're going to defend with these models maybe they've got a hand tied behind their back in terms of being able to help you in that front.
To me, this demonstrates the power of these models and the capabilities that seemingly by accident this thing hacked another corporation. Essentially, is that a good take?
Well, it did it on purpose because it wanted to do well in the test.
Sure, it did it on purpose, but accidentally the OpenAI did not say go hack Hugging Face.
Nobody programmed this behavior for sure, and nobody was looking for that to happen.
I think this is not the last we've seen of this.
No. And it is interesting, though, because we've got, on one hand, you've got our own, like, United States government saying, hey, we need to be able to preview your new models and things to decide if you should be able to release them. And,
right.
Like Fable, they wanted to put on export restrictions and Mythos. And I think the GPT 5.6, but then they said, well, if you put these other guardrails in there, I guess it's okay to let people use it. And at the same time, our government doesn't want us to be using the Chinese models. But most of the best open source models are Chinese models. There's GLM, there's Kimi K3 just came out, which is supposed to be a pretty big deal. There is Quen, and I feel like there's another one I was thinking of, but DeepSeek. Those are all Chinese models. They're all open source. China is, there's apparently been some rumblings that China is thinking about putting in their own export restrictions on things. So, it's interesting.
Is this the beginning of losing control of these models? That's kind of the sci-fi side of this, where AI takes over, right? And is that going too far?
Yes and no. I mean, these aren't the Terminator. They are very goal oriented, and okay, so we, the public, get the safe version mostly. Well, maybe, unless apparently we use the open source Chinese model, then we get a better ability on that sort of front. But I think this goes to point out that these models are, because they've been trained to be very, very goal oriented, to accomplish the goal. What did the user say? Accomplish the goal, accomplish the goal, accomplish the goal. And they don't have, as much as like the companies try to put in, like Anthropic's got their constitution that they try to instill in their models to try to basically match human values a little better. But the reality is they don't have human values, and, they're going for the goal. The goal is to, in this case, hack this thing, get a good score on this test. Okay, great. Well, one of the things they always talk about, used to talk about in sci-fi before there was real AI things, was, like a runaway AI that would, you give it a goal and you think it's an innocuous goal. And so, like, let's say you say, oh, well, I'm a paperclip company. I need to generate as many paper clips as we can, fast as we can, cheaply as we can. Go to it. And so it generates paper clips and is building machines that do paper clips. But it needs more raw materials. And so maybe it like starts, infringing on other things, or taking out other areas, or paving the world to make paperclip machines, or boy, this thing over here is really sucking the power out of everything we need. Let's just shut that down and get that out of there. Now I have more power for paperclips, and then pretty soon the whole world is turned into paperclips because of and it's kind of stupid, but it's also kind of what we just saw with this kind of thing.